Hey
Hey
everyone!
everyone! My name is Akela Byrne. I am the daughter of Brent and Aubrey Byrne, and I am from Eagle River, Alaska.
And my name is Alexandria King. I am the daughter of Megan Wampler and Brian Mart, and I'm originally from Spring Hill, Kansas, but I lived in Ketchikan for a solid amount of time.
Alright, guys, so today we're going to be talking about this awesome lady from Southeast Alaska. She is Alaska Native, Tlingit, and she did a lot to help preserve Tlingit language and Tlingit culture, and so we're going to talk about her.
First off, why we wanted to do someone from Southeast. I gained a lot from just like the short amount of time living in Ketchikan, Alaska. I had so much love and kindness shown to me by especially Tlingit communities in my area. So I wanted to take this opportunity to give back by sharing the story of Nora Marks Dauenhauer. So first off, Nora Marks Dauenhauer was born and raised in Juneau and Hoonah, Alaska, of Tlingit descent as a member of the Raven Sockeye clan. And for those that don't know, Sockeye is one of 5 main breeds of salmon that are present in Southeast Alaska and that cohabitate and are utilized by Native communities. She was born in 1927 from her mother, Emma Frances Marks, who was a well-known beater, and her father, Willie Marks, who was both a carver and fisherman. Kishuni had a very large family with about 14 siblings, 4 children, and plenty of grandchildren and great grandchildren, according to her obituary. She lived for 90 years, changing countless lives in that time. Today, she is well known as a poet and keeper of Tlingit culture, which started very early on in life for her.
Alrighty, so as Alex was saying, she was raised in a traditional subsistence community with her mother being a beater and her father being a fisherman and carver. She lived in a village with other traditional trades, which allowed her to be fully immersed in her culture, which unfortunately not everyone grew up with at this time. Tlingit was her first and only language until she was 8 years old when she began to learn English. She unfortunately had to drop out of school in 6th grade to help support her family, but she was a very hardworking woman, and she returned to school in 1970 to earn her GED while she was teaching Tlingit at Juneau Douglas High School. She then later went on to earn her bachelor's degree in anthropology and met her second husband, Richard Dauenhauer, a professor of literature. And guys, he was awesome. He supported her throughout her entire career, through her culture preservation efforts, through her writings, everything. He was an awesome dude. Much later, she was also awarded an honorary doctorate degree from our very own University of Alaska Southeast.
So, what makes Kishni such an influential person in preserving Tlingit literature and culture?
Well, growing up fully knowing Tlingit and not having her language stripped away made her very valuable to helping preserve it. So, in the 1960s, she began the Tlingit Oratory Project, transcribing and translating speeches given at potlatch, which at this time period was not very common to be translating and transcribing Tlingit, so she was amazing for doing this at this time. Doing this drew the attention of Tlingit elders who decided to choose eixwnéi for the large labor of documenting, translating, and transcribing Tlingit culture. With the help of her husband, she vigorously researched Tlingit culture, specifically the history, language, and storytelling. Through this, she made many pieces of literature such as poems, short stories, dramatic plays, textbooks on Tlingit language, and transcribed stories from Tlingit elders. She also worked with 2 language preservation organizations, the first being the Language Center at the University of Alaska Fairbanks from 1972 to 1973. She then moved on to being the principal researcher in language and cultural studies at the Sea Alaska Heritage Foundation in Juneau from 1983 to 1997. She was a very, very busy lady. At the Sea Alaska Heritage Foundation, where she worked at for a lot longer, she translated and transcribed past recordings of oral history, which is vital in the efforts to preserve Tlingit culture. However, translating and transcribing is not all that she worked on. As previously mentioned, she wrote poems, short stories, and other original works as well.
So, personally, by far my favorite aspect of Kishuni's literary work is its versatility. Her works range from very practical Tlingit language learning books meant to simply teach and had a very straightforward purpose, to creative pieces that focused on her heritage and the beauty she found in her culture, and those were a lot more up to interpretation and a lot more meant for the beauty of literature. When people talk about eixwnéi, they don't often include her efforts and influence in education, but she wrote multiple books teaching history from a Tlingit perspective and teaching the fundamentals of Tlingit as a language. And this was very awesome to hear about for us, because we are one of many benefiting from learning from history from an Indigenous perspective. Our favorite poem that we picked to read today is very straightforward in its inclusion of Tlingit elements in a tone that kind of makes the reader feel like they're on top of the world, at least to me. I think that eixwnéi intended to share aspects of her culture boldly to encourage readers to take a similar pride in their own culture. So today, we're going to be sharing Amelia's first run by our very own Nora Marks eixwnéi Dauenhauer. Amelia, space-age girl,
At the top of sourdough.
makes her run with Eagle Grandpa Dick,
Raven girl, balancing on space.
gliding on air,
In Tlingit colors.
black pants, turquoise jacket,
Yellow shoulder patches.
black hair like feathers,
Clinging to her head.
face the color of red cedar.
Once in a while.
I could even see space.
Between her legs and skis.
Diving downhill,
She continues.
side to side, slalom style.
Following Grandpa's red boots.
Then the two figures swoop around the corner,
Swishing downhill.
shushing home. Now, the beauty of literature, though, is it's all up to interpretation, and eixwnéi was a master of both creating stories with multiple interpretations, like the one that we've included today, but also interpreting stories herself, as translating between languages, and even in one language, translating and transcribing from oral to written has so many cultural and linguistic contextual things to pick up on, and to fully transcribe messages in full-blown stories, it's such an amazing talent that she possessed and shared in her transcribing. Across research, education, and creative writing, eixwnéi had such a valuable talent in preserving Tlingit culture, which we've seen reflected in her position within her moiety and in other recognitions of talent and effort awarded to her.
So, because of her language, literary art, and dedication to preserving Tlingit culture, eixwnéi received many awards throughout her lifetime. Just to name a few of them, she was named the Humanist of the Year in 1980, the Alaska Governor's Award for the Arts in 1989, awarded the Community Spirit Award in 2005, the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2007, the American Book Award in both 1991 and 2008, the Women's Hall of Fame inductee in 2010, the Indigenous Leadership Award in 2011, and the first Alaska Native to hold the title Alaska State Writer Laureate in 2012. Basically, she was a busy lady with a lot of accomplishments throughout her entire lifetime. She also made many publications, such as the Tlingit grammar book Beginning Tlingit in 1976, a 4-part classic of Tlingit oral literature series in the late 1980s, a poetry collection called The Droning Shaman in 1988, For Healing Our Spirit, Tlingit Auditory in 1990, Poetry Volume Life Woven with Song in 2000, and many other publications, short stories, poems, dramatic adaptations, anything that you could write or create, she did it.
So we know that she had a huge part in her own culture and storytelling, and a huge place in literature and academics. But a huge part of who she was and what she did for Native Alaskan groups kind of is a reflection of historical context. So eixwnéi did attend a school deprived of Native Alaskan culture, as many were, hence why she was forced to learn English at the age of 8. She was born at a critical period for Native rights, as people indigenous to the United States had just gained the legal right to vote, but were also facing countless attacks from the United States government and colonizers alike. eixwnéi was, as you mentioned, one of the few to maintain a first language knowledge of Tlingit from birth, despite her attendance in the, quote, Douglas Indian School. This made her vital to the efforts to preserve Tlingit culture and revitalize what had already been lost, while also fighting against the colonizers' government in the United States for basic human rights and the land that was theirs. eixwnéi performed most of her official advocacy through the Alaska Native Sisterhood, an organization that was formed initially to fight for voting and citizenship rights, but now has a general mission: the fight against racism against Alaska Native peoples through social and legal means. She spent most of her time directing her efforts towards the social part of the Alaska Native Sisterhood's mission through transcribing stories that had only been told orally. This created a tangible and undeniable presence and power held by Alaska Native people that couldn't be ignored, as the government of the United States had repeatedly ignored indigenous groups when it wasn't beneficial to directly harass them. It was actions like these that forced the United States to acknowledge, in part, what had been taken from the peoples. bringing us what we now know as ANCSA in 1971, about 2/3 through eixwnéi's life. Overall, eixwnéi was vital in the fight for rights, culture, and humanity for Native Alaskan groups, and the Tlingit especially.
Alrighty, guys, so that is an overview, just a brief overview of her life, of just how amazing
and all that she did.
All that she did. She did a lot. So,
thank you so much.